Hi, this is Mike Casey for San Mateo County History Stories. I'm in Woodside at Wonderlick Park at the Folger Stables historic site by the plaque honoring the nameless Chinese workers who constructed the walls that line the network of roads and trails on Simon Jones' Hazelwood Farm, built around the 1870 period in the 19th century. It could also be argued that this is a tribute to the Chinese workers that helped build San Mateo County and the state of California during the first 50 years of California's history. Now, this all starts with Simon Jones. Simon Jones was a Texas politician, cattleman, and businessman. He came west to the gold rush when he was in his 30s. When he got here, he realized maybe he was too old to hit the gold fields. So he turned to an auction house, an import-export auction house, where he sent raisins to China, imported tea. At that time, his partner was a Chinese man named Feng Tang. It was unusual for a Caucasian and a Chinese man to be partners. This was during the time of the yellow peril rhetoric, and the racial discrimination that Chinese experienced during this time was quite virulent. So this partnership was quite interesting. To give you some of the idea of what the Chinese went through at the time, they could not become citizens, they could not testify against a white man in court. When they mined for gold, they had to pay an extra foreign miner's tax that nobody else had to. When they fished in the bay, they were outlawed from fishing any kind of species except shrimp and clams. When they were so successful in fishing the shrimp, their bag nets were outlawed. People complained that those bag nets were drawing in other species and depleting the fish stock of the bay. That was later proved to be false, but that was some of the problems that Chinese had to face in California at the time. It eventually culminated with the 1882 Chinese Exclusionary Act, in which all Chinese laborers were kept from immigrating to America. That stayed in force till 1943, when China became our allies in World War II. At the time, 1872, Simon Jones purchased 1,500 acres from the John Coppinger land grant. He was granted 12,000 acres from the Mexican government. That property was subsequently subdivided. Simon Jones purchased 1,500 acres in 1872. It was mainly timberland, and it was later to become Hazelwood Farm, which specialized in horse breeding, cattle grazing, vineyards, and the cultivation of fruit trees. At the time, he needed somebody to clear away the timberland that was on his property, so he turned to his friend Feng Tang. There were a number of Chinese working in San Mateo County at the time in the Great Estates, and at the time, the Chinese labor force was the biggest in California. It was young, and it was single, and it was quite transient. So there were some working on the Great Estates. The Chinese were instrumental in building the San Francisco to San Jose Railroad in the early 1860s. That was sort of a dress rehearsal for their work on the Transcontinental Railroad, building the railroad from west to east. Also, they were adept at cultivating fruits and vegetables on farms. The beginning of the flower industry in California had its roots with Chinese laborers and cultivators of flowers. They were noted for their walls, building the railroad and the irrigation canals in Hawaii. So the construction of these walls was not really surprising. They were quite adept at the construction. I might add that the stones for this are sandstones quarried locally. The amazing thing about these walls is they were done with no coping, no mortar. It's using a dry stack method, and they survived the 1906 earthquake and the 1989 earthquake. The biggest walls are behind the stables here. There are some walls here that are up to 10 feet high using the same method. So when you look at these, this is really a fitting tribute to the Chinese workers that built these walls, but also, as I said at the beginning, to the Chinese workers that at the beginning of San Mateo County and the beginning of the state of California made it what it is today.